Hi friends, in our time together today, I'm introducing Planxty George Brabazon by Turlo O'Carolan. We'll follow our usual pattern. The tune has an A part and a B part. I'll walk us through each, one phrase at a time. After that, in the play along with Scott section, I'll play through the entire tune without ornamentation or expression, just so that you really get a sense of the core of the tune. Then I'll share what I think may be some challenges as you learn the tune, because after all, there are challenges to learning every tune, right? Then I'll share some ornamentation and expression ideas, and then I'll share some of what I learned about the history of this really wonderful tune. I'll place a link at the top of the notes to this video to the page of my website from which you could download the music and tabs for this tune if you use those. Now, I'd like to let you know how I crafted the setting that I'm sharing, the transcription. And what I'm doing is, in this instance, I'm using the setting from the Old Music Project, where they have a whole list of all the tunes from Turlo O'Carolan as captured by Francis O'Neill. And the setting there seems to be really very similar to other settings of, well, the way people play the tune. And so I thought I'll just use that one. And so that's good. You will see some variation. And the variation's primarily whether somebody wants to use a step down repeated note or if they want to add another bouncy run in. And so I just went with the one that Francis O'Neill had transcribed. Now, you will see, I believe at least two that I'm certain of, Planxty tunes by Turlo for George Brabazon. And this is the number 2 Planxty he wrote for him. Anyway, we'll get into some of that. Let me play, one other thing. Francis O'Neill says in his notes to the tune to play it moderately. And for my playthrough, today I'm using the Burke Brass Viper Low D, and I'll put a link in the notes to the video, or a couple of links as to where you could pick one up, if you would like. So, here's the A part. And I always try and move my fingers extra high, a lot higher than I normally like to play, so that that accentuated movement will help you see what notes I'm playing. I hope it helps. Here's the B part. All right, a note on the flow of the tune. You'll notice that as you step into the B part, it has a slightly different feel to it, and then it returns like 3/4 of the way through the B part. It returns to the A part feel to close that out. Each of those is repeated. Now, in the play along with Scott section, let me play the whole tune without ornamentation or expression, including repeats. Pull my stool up. So that, my friends, is the entire tune. Well, let's think through some challenges and difficulties I think you'll experience. I mean, after all, you heard me squeak playing into that second part the first time through. There may have been more. The first thing is you're going to have to spend some quality time in the second octave. So I hope you're comfortable playing pretty close to the top of the second octave on your whistle. So it really brings you up there. And the tune itself is supposed to be, I've listened to a number of folks play it. It's supposed to be smooth and flowing. And it's just a gentle flowing. And then you add in ornamentation and expression to accentuate the flow and to minimally interrupt it sometimes to get that. But that flow is also something that I think is going to give you grief, because some of the runs are straight runs and some of the runs do note jumps. So, straight run. Straight run. So therefore, up to that point, you're just doing sequential note runs. So there, you're actually going to have to skip and repeat and step up. So you really, so pay attention to that. And then you get some bounces within the second octave in the beat part. I think one of the bigger challenges is to teach yourself to flow with the tune, and that's going to be really important. As you learn the tune, try to get smooth note transitions and cleanliness of tone as you're going through. That's what I'm going to be working on. So ornamentation and expression. So if the tune is to be clean and flowing, then you want to flow with that. So I've heard I've heard it played a couple of different paces. A lot of folks play it that kind of pace, maybe even a smidge slower. And then some folks are playing it a little faster. And so the ornamentation, if you're playing it a little faster, can be a little more crisp, a little more interruptive. But if you're playing a little slower, there I'm actually going to alter the rhythm slightly so that it feels like it's just pouring out of itself. And if I'm playing it faster, I'm going to do a bit more. And then especially when I get into that second bit, I'm going to, moving at the end of the first, that pretty strong, with stronger ornamentation, some powerful slides, maybe a good strong cut, maybe even a roll up there, and then start getting smooth again as you're getting back into the... And then let that top of the second octave sing. Like I normally say, I'm listening to a bunch of people. I was out running errands today, and what I did when I was running errands was just listen to a bunch of different versions of this. I encourage you to do that. You'll seat the tune in your brain, and it'll give you ideas for how to play it. In a couple of days, a few days, I'll share one of my practice sessions. Let's think through the history of the tune. So you may know or may remember that a Planxty is a term Turlo O'Carolan used when he was writing a tune to honor a patron. Depending upon how long he stayed with someone and how much he liked them, it may depend like how many he wrote. And but he would often, what I see, he would often do something he was honoring one of the members of the household. Sometimes it would be like the lord of the manor. Sometimes it's one of the children. And in this instance, George is, we're not exactly sure when it was written, but he would be at this time, still bachelor young man in the house. And Turlo wrote 2 tunes to honor George. So he must have really liked George. That's my feeling. I'm not 100% sure, but, it sounds sensible. Turlo, if you remember, lived from 1670 to 1738. He was a blind harpist, traveled around. A patron would house him. He would put on concerts. He'd compose while I was there. And invariably, he would compose a tune in honor of his patron who kept him. And so that's where all those Planxties came from. Some people say, well, maybe this isn't a Turlo tune because, some transcriptions don't attest it to him. But Donald O'Sullivan, who is one of the premier O'Carolan scholars, says, I'm pretty positive this is an O'Carolan tune. And that's fine. Now, George and his family, you could look up a lot about the family, but George and his family lived in County Mayo. He was the son of a very wealthy, large landowning family, and I won't get into how they got their land. You can imagine, and you could look it up. How about that? And he's not the only George in the family, so you got to pay attention to when they were all born. Excuse me. So we know that Turlo O'Carolan passed before 1740, and George didn't marry until 1750. So he would have been a young bachelor in the house at that time, and O'Carolan took a fondness to him and wrote Planxties in his honor, as probably a favored member of the Brabazon household. And so we assume that Turlo was staying with them, probably putting on concerts at their house, and composing, and that would be lovely. Now, when the tune traveled to Scotland and became popular there, primarily it was renamed after the Jacobite Rebellion of 1745, and the tune was renamed in Scotland to honor Bonnie Prince Charlie, and it was named there Prince Charlie's Welcome to the Island of Skye. And so you'll see that. Now, there are a few folks who say that there's an older Scottish tune that this was based on. I don't know. We weren't there back then. I'll leave that to the scholars to argue between them. But for now, you and I can just enjoy an O'Carolan tune, right? Now, on a side note, and to close our timeout, this is actually one of the first big hits that the Chieftains had, was playing Planxty George Brabazon. And I think that's pretty cool. So you could look up their version. It's one of the quicker versions, and look up a number of versions. I hope this is fun and helpful, my friend. I know you're going to enjoy playing this great tune. If you're brand new and checking us out because of the walkthrough of the tune, please subscribe and join our great community of folks learning to play the whistle together. Until next time, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling, friends.